everyone, and welcome to The Wow, where we are connecting and empowering women through sports. I'm Jade, and joined virtually are my lovely co-hosts, Stephanie GeNienne and GeNienne Samuels. Hi, ladies.
Hello.
Hello. And we are going to give you a couple teases in the beginning. We are extremely fortunate to have with us later on in the show, in honor of Military Appreciation Month, a WOW woman herself, Captain Katie Spencer. Captain Spencer is a United States Air Force Public Affairs Officer at the 512 Airlift Wing at the Dover Air Force Base in Delaware, but she also works in the sports industry and has something to do with one of my favorite parts of the games at FedEx Field, so stay tuned for that. And also, we have a huge announcement coming up in the next couple of weeks for the WOW. So lots to look forward to, so make sure that you stay listening at home and on your runs. We are going to kick it off in segment one. We're going to do a quick round robin of what's going on at Redskins and around football in general. I'm going to do what my favorite guy does from The Office. I'm going to share good news in the beginning. So good news, one of the most beloved Redskins of all time, Secretary of Defense, Dexter Manley, is doing much better as he is going through recovery and the battle with COVID. John Riggins on the Rigo the Diesel show spoke about his improvement and tried to really give some, we hear a lot of different news out there in social media, so he really tried to get right to the source of what was going on and spoke to his wife. Yesterday, Dexter's temperature was very close to normal and his oxygen levels are almost normal, so we wish him the best he recovers. I know that Redskins Nation is rooting for him, and we just wish him the absolute best.
Absolutely. Yeah, such good news to hear.
Mm-hmm. Great news to hear. And just came out. The schedule is out. There is light at the end of the tunnel. Football is so close. It is something to look forward to. Stephanie, what were your thoughts about the Redskins the Redskins release show?
Yeah, I thought it was amazing. Our schedule release that was presented by Pepsi, we just keep stepping the game up in our digital events. But of course, my favorite part of it was Matthew McConaughey, for several reasons, but I thought that his energy was just hysterical when he talked about, he's a lifelong Redskins fan and how when he was a kid and dressed up in Redskins gear in Cowboy Stadium, making a scene, and he got kicked out. I was telling someone about this. They're like, they kicked Matthew McConaughey out. I'm like, well, this is before we all knew who Matthew McConaughey was. He would never get kicked out now. But I also loved how he, brought in like what we're going through right now with the pandemic and kind of a call to action for us to love and understand one another. It's a humanitarian crisis, to kind of remind us that it's a humanitarian crisis and not a political crisis where we're trying to politicize each end of the spectrum for it. So I thought that was a great tie-in to what's going on, and hence why we're having a virtual schedule release. So he was my favorite part of the show.
Yeah, I have to agree. And I wish I had maybe another favorite part of the show, but he was mine as well. And I think it's because it's just really cool to have, like what we consider a celebrity and see that they kind of bleed burgundy and gold just as we do. And like literally he had on his Redskins t-shirt and he was like showing it off, like, see what I have on. And then he had footballs in the background. He had his hats in the background. I mean, he had it all set up and staged. And I just was like, oh my gosh, I knew he was a fan, but he is like a super fan. And so that was really cool. And then obviously also, Fred Smoot being there, Brian Mitchell, simply because, I cheered for them on the sidelines. So always kind of seeing them and hearing from them again is always, just kind of brings back memories of when we were on the field together, kind of in the sport and, as cheerleaders rooting them on. So just overall, I think the Redskins organization just did such a good job with that schedule release. I know all of us were waiting and ready to just kind of find out who was on the schedule and in what order. Also really cool that former Ohio State coach Urban Meyer, he had a lot of good things to say about Chase Young. So obviously, that's really important to us being our first pick. So excited to hear some positivity there, even though really I haven't heard a lot of negative about Chase Young. But wanted to kind of get you all's thoughts on us.
He did say he couldn't dance, though, which was kind of funny. So I guess he won't be joining you guys in the end zone for any special appearances, but that's okay.
But I think, Jay, we can teach him.
We can work on it.
Yeah, he's teachable.
We can work on it. He's coachable. We can work on it.
So wanted to get you all's thoughts. One thing, just kind of scrolling down the schedule. In December, we're going to meet up with the 49ers and Trent Williams. So what are you all's thoughts on obviously facing him and then the almost Super Bowl champs?
Yeah, I think there's, a lot of former Redskins go on and play at other teams. So I think we're professionals, and I think these guys, especially with Coach Ron Rivera, it's just another game. I think Coach Ron Rivera came out and said that, especially looking at the Panthers schedule. It's just another game. It's an opportunity to just play the X's and O. And I think the professionalism of the Redskins, they're not really going to be bothered by seeing Trent Williams. I think each season is a clean slate. Just because they were in the Super Bowl, the 49ers last year, does not mean they're going to make it to playoffs this year. Just because our record was X, Y, and Z last year does not mean it's not going to be that we're not going to be in playoffs. So it's really a clean slate, and it really is an opportunity. I mean, you can look at the Falcons, for example. They were in the Super Bowl a couple years ago, and they didn't make it to playoffs that following season. So really, at the beginning of this preseason starts, it is a clean slate, and I really think that is what Coach Ron Rivera is going to. That's his mentality, and I think you're really going to see it this season.
Absolutely. And for me, I love when we play the Eagles. So we open and end with them.
Yeah.
And we've made some great friends when we go up there, and have probably the best tailgate ever created there. So their fans are not all bad. So yeah, I'm very excited about that opening and closing for us.
Yeah, and I was definitely looking for, it's so funny how all of us are looking for different things. Definitely Dallas, like when is that game? When are those games happening? So those are the ones that I'm always looking for, simply because it seems like in this area, you either love Redskins or you love Dallas. And so there's that rivalry in this area with those two teams. So just excited for the upcoming season. Can't wait.
Yeah, I think now more than ever, and we've said it before, we cannot wait for sports to be back. And I know football season is going to be electric. It might look a little different. Who really knows? But either way, the schedule release and the schedule coming out really gives us something to look forward to. And I cannot wait. With that, we're going to wrap up segment 1, and we are going to welcome Captain Katie Spencer to the show in segment 2. To help during this time, Subway restaurants are offering a free footlong when you buy 2 in our family takeout. Free sub of equal lesser price at participating restaurants, no additional discount, not valid on delivery. Free delivery is also now available through all applicable providers in the market. Use promo code SUBWAY now to waive all delivery fees on your next purchase.
You're ready to drive again. Enjoy the open road with the confidence and powerful performance of a new Honda. From stylish turbocharged sedans like the Accord and Civic to rugged all-wheel drive SUVs like the CR-V, HR-V Pilot, and Passport. With safety features like Honda Sensing, including a collision migration braking system, adaptive cruise control, Honda Lane Watch, and more. Get a great deal on your favorite Honda. Contact your local Honda dealer for more information or visit WashingtonAreaHondaDealers.com.
Stay up to the minute with all Redskins news this offseason. Download the official Washington Redskins mobile app. Geographic and device restrictions apply. Data charges may apply.
Welcome back to the WOW, connecting and empowering women through sports. As I mentioned earlier, our WOW woman and very special guest is with us today. We have Captain Katie Spencer. As many of us do, she wears 2 hats. She works full-time in a civilian job as a Fed employee for the United States Air Force, doing all the sports outreach and co-manages the aerial events program. And as a military reservist job, Captain Spencer is the public affairs officer for the 512 Airlift Wing, Dover Air Force Base in Delaware. She manages an office of 5 airmen and provides trusted counsel to wing leadership. She also deployed to Afghanistan in 2011 and Qatar in 2018. Wow. Captain Spencer, thank you so much for joining us. Please tell us a little bit about yourself and your journey to where you are now.
Sure. Well, thank you guys so much for having me. Super excited to be here. So my journey to wearing this uniform and doing sports in my civilian job, I went through college, did undergrad, had my intentions initially were to graduate and do sports marketing. So all of my internships in college were with sports teams. Graduated, the economy was terrible. And so my mom, who served in the Air Force Reserve for 33 years, kind of encouraged me and pushed me and motivated me to join. And so I did. I enlisted, and I was in public affairs. Never in a million years did I think that I could join the military. Never did I think that I could do it. Boot camp, push-ups, running, not my thing. But my mom, told me that I could, and I did. And fast forward, through the years, fortunate enough to land a civilian job, because remember, I'm a reservist, land a civilian job doing sports outreach for the Air Force. So it's kind of like everything came full circle, which is wild to me.
It's kind of, being in the military, to me, because we've done tours with the cheerleaders, I've done multiple, almost seems like being on a team, right? You have the people that you have to rely on. So, being in sports, how can you relate that to the military for people that have never experienced military life?
Sure. So, the sports outreach that I do, it's a lot of like playing the flyovers, getting military outreach out on the fields, all telling our story, all that stuff. And so we work a lot with the in-game entertainment folks. And if, for my sports people, if anybody knows, you cannot do that alone. You cannot execute a in-game presentation alone. It doesn't happen. And it's the same thing in the military. Like, you can't execute a mission without the help of your teammates. And so, when we think about our objectives, whether it's sports or military, the concept of needing that team cohesion is just essential to mission success.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I gotta say, I am auditioning for my 6th season with the Redskins, and the flyovers, and just especially like the military appreciation games, are by far highlights of my career with the NFL. So thank you for the work that you do. I get chills every time that plane flies over. But I gotta ask you, as someone who's also traveled overseas for military appreciation tours, what is it like for women deployed overseas in the military?
Oh, man. So I was in Afghanistan in 2011, and I was a very young enlisted airman before I got my commission. And I was the command general's photographer. So we traveled across the country to all the different provinces, and I was the only female on his traveling team, going through battlefield circulations. So I remember this one time we went to this training facility because we were training the Afghans. There were security police and security forces, and I really had to use the bathroom. So we finally get to where we're going, and they take us into the facilities, and it's not like they have a male-female stall, right? They said, okay, there you go. So I opened up the door, and it was a concrete slab with a hole in it. And I didn't have time to like react because I really had to go to the bathroom. So and remember, I can't just like zip down and go, like I had to take off my leg holster. I had to take off my vest. I had to take off all my battle rattle, and squat. And the whole time I'm just thinking, please don't pee on my uniform. Please don't pee on my uniform. Because I didn't want to smell like urine around the general, like as I'm traveling this country. So I did not pee on my uniform, for those wondering.
Good.
But it's just, something that you kind of take for granted, So it was crazy. And being around the Afghans, they're not used to seeing a female in uniform, so they all wanted to take pictures with me and be around me and touch me. And it was surreal. It was crazy. And then in Qatar, it's very westernized, so not nearly as intense as it was in Afghanistan.
Yeah, I will say, as someone who's traveled and had the opportunity to be in those countries and meet the men and women, I give so many props to our military servicemen and women in general, but definitely the women, because I had the same problem, and I can't imagine what you guys go through. So I'm just going to applaud you for that.
Yeah. We make it work. We have no time. You got to make it work.
And then, in your career your civilian career, you're, one of a kind, which is amazing. You're paving the way for other women. So thank you. With that said, you and I had spoken about your grandmother's journey in paving the way for women in the 50s to go back to work after having babies, which is inspiring. Can you expand on this a little bit more for us?
Sure. So my grandma had my dad back in the 1950s, and 8 weeks after, popping him out, she went back to work. She was a registered nurse for 60 years. So she didn't really adhere to the traditional gender roles, and she didn't think anything of it. She wasn't like, oh, I'm a trailblazer, I'm doing this for women everywhere. She just did what needed to be done, you know, and she was just an incredible woman who just did her own thing, really. Like grandma just said and did whatever she wanted. And it got even more to that point as she got older, because then she really just didn't care what people thought. But yeah, just like a super inspiration.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I think that's what's incredible a lot about women who paved the way is at that time, they didn't know what they were doing. They didn't know that they were setting the, you know, the path and the precedent for what we now get to experience. Your family has definitely paved the way. I'm going to jump to another family member that or two family members you mentioned when we talked. You said your aunts who are twins were the face of the Marine Corps to help recruit women for the military. What does that mean to you?
Yeah, so I had two twin great aunts, and they were my grandfather's sisters, and they enlisted in the Marine Corps back in World War II, and they were essentially traveling the country for recruiting efforts to recruit more women to do the jobs stateside when the men went out and fought the war. You know, and I asked my dad, and I did some research, and Irene and Madeline Spencer, those are their names. They just patriotism ran through their blood, and they wined and dined at the White House. Like they did all of these efforts to really get women to join service, and you know, for the efforts, for the war efforts. And so, you know, hearing those stories and hearing how they just joined simply because they thought it was the right thing to do and they had love for their country, it explains, you know, that coupled with my mom, and why I joined, you know, and why I love what I do. And the fact that they just put on the uniform and didn't care, you know, they just did what they had to do.
Right.
Strong women. It's amazing.
Yeah, you've had some, I mean, the women in your life are amazing. I know we're cutting shorter on time, but is there one thing that about your mom, I know she inspired you to pursue your career that you have now? Any other story about maybe who inspired her or something you want to share?
Maybe not a story about my mom, but I do have, because my mom is just amazing. She's a superhero. But I do have some advice for women.
Perfect.
Okay. So the advice that I have for women is that as important as it is for us to uplift and empower one another, I think it's just as important that we communicate, educate, and inspire the men in our social circles. And here's why. My dad had my mom, or my dad had my grandmother to look at and to respect, and saw that she didn't care about gender roles, traditional gender roles, right? Mm-hmm. And it was instilled in him. So when he married my mom, who is a very, very strong and independent woman, you know, when it came time for her to put on the uniform, put on those boots, and go be the superhero that she is, he valued that. You know, he supported it, he embraced it. And as a result, I was able to have that strong woman figure in my life. And so when we talk about the narrative of gender roles, we almost have to look at it like sports, like the military. It doesn't take one person. It's a team effort, you know? And so we want to make sure that that little girl, you know, that's coming up in the next generation of women doesn't have a glass ceiling, you know, that everyone in her social circle understands the value of women empowerment. And she can do whatever she wants to do. So yes, women, we bond together in unity. We're amazing. But it needs to be on both ends of the spectrum.
Absolutely agree. 100%.
Yeah, I love that. You know, I love that we talk a lot about your tribe, but your tribe can look different. You know, it's really who is around you to help you rise up and mold you into the person. And I love what you just said. And unfortunately, our time is coming to an end somehow, but it has been an absolute honor and pleasure having you join the WOW. Please tell us where listeners can learn more about women in service.
Sure. So anyone interested can, of course, go to the Air Force Facebook pages. You know, they can go to the 512th Airlift Wing Facebook page for the reserve. And they can go to airforce.com if they're interested in joining the Air Force. you know, or just search women in service, and there's so much out there of so many people with incredible stories. And then check out flyovers at a Redskins game near you.
Yes.
Love it. Thank you so much, Capt and Spencer.
Thank you. We'll see you soon.
Bye.
Bye.
Sign up for FanDuel now and get $5 in total bonus. Just make your first deposit to get started and you'll get an extra $5 in site credit. Go to FanDuel.com/FFT or download the FanDuel app.
75 tons of game day trash and recyclables need to find a home. So when the final whistle blows, our team hits the field. An official partner of the Washington Redskins, RTS is connecting FedEx Field with smarter waste solutions to ensure a more sustainable and responsible approach to what's left behind at the end of a game. RTS, a better waste company. Find more at rts.com.
Whether from the sidelines or in the classroom, whether your chalkboard is for X's and O's or vocab words, whether you're a pro football coach or Mrs. Johnson at George Mason High School, the Washington Redskins believe in the power of great teachers. That's why we're partnering with youth entrepreneurs to bring Washington, D.C. teachers the resources they deserve. In response to the coronavirus pandemic, Youth Entrepreneurs has launched Teach Everywhere, a place for teachers to call home while adjusting to teaching at home. The resource contains distance learning activities, resources and tools, and a series of webinars from expert educators. Visit teacheverywhere.org to learn more.
All right, welcome to Overtime here at the WOW. I want to say wow about our special guest, Capt and Spencer. She is incredible, and what I truly loved about it is her just discussing how women in her life have not only paved the way for her and her career and her accolades, but also paved the way for women in general. And I want to spend this overtime really talking about paving the way. GeNienne, you missed this segment, but I want to start with you. What were your takeaways from listening to Capt and Spencer?
Yeah, so literally had a front row seat.
Yeah.
You know, to hearing her amazing story, and just so much respect for her, all women and men in the military. Obviously for me, you know, the military has a very special place in my heart, just going on numerous military tours, being the host for Operation Rising Star, which was basically a singing competition for the military. And it just kind of underscores how important having that diversity in our military really is. I have to admit, I could relate to, and I sort of chuckled with her story about going to Afghanistan, you know, being the only female on the traveling team. When we would travel, and I remember specifically for Afghanistan, a lot of women and just people in general don't appreciate just having a toilet. And I just chuckled hearing her story about that, because a lot of us have been through that going overseas, and it really just hits home how much they sacrifice for us day in and day out, from, you know, having to urinate in a hole in the ground to living in a tent or just being in the outdoor elements. And so, you know, just really respect her and just everything that she's done and the women that have paved the way for her, right? So she talked about her grandmother, her aunts, and her mom, and having those strong role models in her life and how it really did help mold her and shape who she is today, and ultimately her career decisions and the decisions that she made as a woman based off of these strong women that came before her. And the last thing kind of that I really respected about her was her advice to other women, and just reminding us of the importance of educating and inspiring men in our circles. I know on this WOW podcast, we talk often about uplifting and helping one another as women, but just remembering that men are part of our team as well. And it's really important that everyone understands the value of empowerment of women, so that our journeys are supported by those around us, including men. So just excellent interview. Amazing woman.
So I totally agree. Actually, GeNienne, quick story. I remember being one of the, you know, first cheerleading teams as the Redskins were to go over to Bosnia and Kosovo, and sleeping in a room, all of us together with a jacket for our pillow, walking in the dark to the showers because they had to have the camp dark, with your little robe and your carry-on thing, you know, and I just looked at the women as I was sharing the bathroom with them, and all I could say was thank you. And how do you do, you didn't want to say how do you do this because you didn't want to make them feel like, oh my God, my life is miserable. But we were just looking at them with this, I love you, like you're amazing.
Yeah.
So,
admiration. Yeah.
Right. And, for me, I think when she was talking about us all working together as a team, I agree. I mean, women empowerment, at some point, it's not about us living in a man's world. And sometimes it's about us working together as a team and how we can all lift each other up. And if your tribe is more women, that's amazing. And I have 2 young men I'm trying to bring up to not see gender roles and to believe that their mommy is just as amazing and awesome as their dad. So I think that resonates with me and what she said. And, for me, I had this quote that I liked. It says, if you can see your path laid out in front of you step by step, it's not your path. Your own path you make with every step you take. That's why it's your path. And that was by Joseph Campbell. But when she talked about her grandmother, who was just taking her steps, to help her family and to do what she felt was important in serving in the medical, arena and being a nurse, it wasn't about I'm the first to do X, Y, and Z. It was just, what can I do? This is my path and my journey. So I thought that was amazing.
Yeah, we talk about this, not a lot, but we talk about this a lot. But, I applaud the Redskins for having the Women of Washington program and having that entity, but also this podcast. How many times on an NFL or just across the leagues and different industries and sports do you have our voice? It's not necessarily just talking about football, but talking about life and life as a fan and life as a player and a person. And it's not about being first. I mean, we say that a lot, like, oh, it's first. It's not about that. It's the fact that it's happening. And I think that it happened. And I think that's really what I took away from Captain Spencer is just this, it's not, they didn't know they were doing it. Like, we are proud of ourselves and we're proud to be able to give this voice and have our listeners join us on this journey, but it's because it needs to happen and it is happening. So I'm really proud I'm proud of Captain Spencer and I'm proud of us and I'm really proud to be a Redskin.
Yeah, definitely. And then just the Redskins organization, like you mentioned with WOW, but then also the cheerleaders. And I know that is a part of who the 3 of us are, but that started in 1962. So think about like how those women have paved the way for the current cheerleaders that, can shake those palms and perform and uplift the fans and be role models for and ambassadors for our community. And then not only that, it doesn't stop there, right? We have a juniors program that has over 100, young ladies that participate on game day. And we have an all-stars program. And so, just Redskins organization in general just really supports women. And it's just kind of thinking about when you're in that moment, you sort of forget about, oh, wait, we started as Redskinettes back in 1962, and being able to meet those women in person with our alumni association, which happens to be the largest cheerleader alumni association in the NFL. It just really, I know for you all, we just appreciate everyone and every woman that has come before us.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I'm going to give a WOW goal to our listeners this week. I want everyone to think about people who've paved the way for you and for them, but also what can you do to pave the way for the future women and the future WOW women. So that is your goal this week. Think about it, sleep on it, and obviously let us know if we can help pave the way in any way, as well as you thinking about your future and your journey. But unfortunately, somehow this has come to an end. As much as I love to see each of you, I'm going to ask everyone to please rate, review, subscribe to the WOW podcast, follow WOW Redskins on all social media accounts, and make sure you listen to next week. We have a very special guest and a very important announcement coming up that you are not going to want to miss. Thank you so much, and thanks for listening to the WOW. Bye, guys.
Even though COVID-19 poses an unprecedented challenge, you can count on Novec to deliver reliable power and to help in other ways. Novec.com offers tips to save energy while spending more time at home. Novec customers can monitor their energy use online, as well as pay bills through the website or by phone. And anyone can donate to help neighbors in need through Operation Roundup. Novec, power you can count on.
I'm Robert Wilkie, Secretary of the Department of Veterans Affairs. 155 years ago, President Lincoln called upon us to care for America's veterans. Today, you can help answer that call. We are looking for physicians, nurses, and other medical professionals to help protect veterans from the coronavirus. Go to va.gov/join us or text VA physician or VA nurse to 97211.